How do I apply the daily Tanya to my life when it discusses lofty spiritual concepts?
Generally speaking, Hasidus has two forms of learning. There is what's known as Avoida Dike Maimorim, Avoida Dike Hasidus, and there's the Haskalah. Avoida represents the kind of learning where a person opens up a Maimer, a book of Hasidus, where the person delves into their soul and understands their struggle, relates to inyanim, concepts of elikus to some extent, where they could be relatable to the person's consciousness or subconscious, and through that the person awakens a deeper sense of what is demanded from them, and therefore they know what to work on and how to work on it, and therefore become a better person, serve Hashem properly. The Haskalah Maimorim deal with seemingly very deep, esoteric, abstract concepts. It maps out from the Kabbalic perspective the different levels of like Adam Kadmoin and the Or Ein Sof, Lifnei Atzimsum, La'achar Atzimsum, Yichudi Elo, Yichudi Tato, various concepts that for the average reader, learner of these concepts seems to be very abstract and very unrelatable. And as the name the word Haskalah seems to indicate, is that it's purely academic, intellectual pursuits. So where does that realm and how does that realm relate to us on a day-to-day level? And I think this question really is very practical, very relevant, I should say, nowadays, where a lot of people do get turned off by Hasidus because they relate to Hasidus as being a whole bunch of esoteric concepts, especially when you learn Maimorim of the Rebbe Rashab, Samach Vov, Ayin Beis, Mem Gimel, etc., where there seems to be this exploration of deep mystical ideas, and it doesn't seem to have any practical. And today we're all about the here and now. How do the 7 ways to make my life better, and the 7 practical tools to this and that. And the other thing, how does Chassidus fit into that picture? However, if one really appreciates themselves, and by way of analogy, when we're talking about understanding the self, there's very much of the self that we're unaware of. We call it subconscious, unconscious. The psychologists have already used the definitions that really are definitions that you'll find in Hasidus, but we have more of a vocabulary based on the definitions they use, where there's most of the self we're not aware of. And being that we're not aware of it, we don't really understand the inner makings of our being. And we don't appreciate what drives us, where things come from, how things evolve. And if that's true about ourself, how much more so is it about the world and about creation, about existence, about reality? These are all fundamental concepts which may seem at first being purely abstract ideas left to the worlds of the philosophers to discuss about what is reality, what is consciousness, and all that. But when one really comes to Hasidus, the real question a person is asking is, what am I here for? What's my mission? What's my purpose? When you open up the book of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that I'm going to explain to you in Likutei Amorim, Kikar b'lecha davar me'od b'ficha v'vav chalasoisei. This book is going to tell you practically how to be a Jew. Love Hashem, fear Hashem, be motivated to serve Hashem, and therefore serve Hashem properly. And within that realm, the Alter Rebbe also tells us in chapters 35, 36 about the concept of why we're here, Dir B'tachtonim, the purpose of making this world a dwelling place for God, etc. We keep on spinning these words, and we bring about it, we talk about it, and we sort of get some feeling that there's a purpose here that means I have to work on myself and develop and grow and do Torah mitzvahs, etc. But in the bigger picture, in the greater picture of understanding how does this all work out, and why is it that my avodah actually impacts atzmus, or how is it that I actually draw down a revelation of Or Ein Sof into this world, etc. If I want to explore these ideas, I need to do a research of myself. Through exploring my inner world, I could explore the deeper realms of reality, of the nature of the world. Chassidus opens us up to understanding ourself very deeply. And by that, we'll therefore explore and understand creation, purpose of creation, godliness, alikus, and that brings together the entirety of existence, the entirety of reality. Take, for example, driving a car. When you go into a car for the first time, you have no clue. Most people don't understand what does it mean, what are they doing. You don't necessarily have an instructor telling you what to do. You go into the car, you start driving. And you intuitively start sensing certain things that you have to be aware of. Now, the first few times you drive, the instructor's trying to tell you, be careful here, drive this way, don't drive that way, make the turn this amount of, do the turn this amount and not that amount, etc. But all of this information is really intuitive. It's just a matter of you becoming more conscious of this information. And as you drive, the more and more you drive, the more and more this information becomes at first conscious, then reverts back to the subconscious, and it just plays. So when you're driving, after 2 or 3 years of driving, the driving down the road is nothing for you. At first, there was a whole bunch of distractions. You have to look here, look there, make sure the car is in front of you and in back of you and the sides of you. Once you're driving for a long enough period of time, all these things are just natural by you. The same thing is with learning Chassidus. There's a lot of deep concepts that Chassidus throws at you that you have to become aware of. And on a day-to-day basis, they may not actually play a major role in your life. In other words, dealing with the Or Ein Sof on a day-to-day basis is actually not so practical. But when you become aware of them, in terms of how they do impact the different aspects of your existence and how they play a role in your purpose of existence, like Yichudei Elah, understanding that our existence is, our sense of existence is really, to some extent, just made up in our own subjective minds. It's not real in the sense of what we perceive. As the story of the Tzemach Tzedek, where the Alter Rebbe asked him, what does he see? And he says, I see a beam, and the Alter Rebbe says, I see the Dvar Hashem. Essentially, that's what we're striving to be. But knowing the exact mechanisms or details of how or why we don't feel that way, learning Shar Yechad B'Amun and understanding the concept of Tzimtzum, is a necessity to just open us up to be able to become much more fluid, so to speak, with the inner self, to become fluid with the energies of creation and existence. Eventually, we become so in tune with them that this information becomes subconscious, and now we're just driving in the car and getting to our destination. We're doing Torah mitzvahs, we're connecting to Hashem, we're feeling the Ava V'Yira. But to get us to that state of being so comfortable, for it to be so subconscious, to the point that we just go with the flow, we could flow within our mission and our purpose, there's many points of information that we have to know. Or better yet, when you take a driver's test, they want you to know a whole bunch of information that may not be at first so relevant, at least on a day-to-day level. But it brings together the experience of driving. It allows for the safety and the proper perspective of how to get from where you are to the next destination you want to get to. So, if someone's going to learn these ideas in Chassidus and they're going to try to figure out how is that practical, within a practical, pragmatic way, not necessarily all these concepts could be explained in a pragmatic way, because they're not. They're abstract concepts. They deal with the realms of the super conscious state. But when we become in tune with them and we fully appreciate the greater reality and the fabric of reality and the fabric of consciousness, which is basically what these ideas are, understanding the nurturing of the person through the realms of Adam Kadmon, and understanding how our Esser spheres and the concept of the 10 spheres are all development through the Or Ein Sof, coming down through the process of Tzimtzum, it begins to awaken within our deeper subconscious that which we know intuitively, but now is flooding through our consciousness, and now we could recognize and realize the depth of the entire cosmic fabric of reality. And through that, once we get fully imbued with it, we fully connect, we become holistic. Every aspect of our being is connected. So then when we're actually taking the car and going for a ride and trying to get to the next destination, i.e. making the Eretz Tachtain and practical, we're fully imbued with the energies, the understanding, and the perspective that we're naturally going to be guided to the right direction. We're not going to veer off and try every other road. We won't need a GPS, because we'll have the GPS within us, because we'll be so in sync with what is our job and how our job manifests and what's the ideas of the job and how this all plays from the deeper cosmic to the very practical realms, that we're totally in sync. Our natural GPS just drives us and propels us to the right direction, and that is what the Eretz Tachtonim is, that the full breath of the super consciousness comes conscious, the full knowledge of Elikus becomes revealed into this world, and that only happens when we become fully aware of these ideas. We see it as real, and therefore there's an altering of our consciousness, an altering of our perspective of reality, and therefore when we're driving down the street, so to speak, we're not bogged down by all the interesting, entertaining, external distractions, because we know what our mission is, we feel our mission, we sense our mission. We're living in a different, disconnected almost reality, but very connected to our mission and our goal. Mission is accomplished through us being fully imbued with the knowledge and understanding of how this is us and how we become, through our connection to our inner self and the connection to Hashem, the fact that the neshama is a chelik kamal mamish. So then this experience, which is all going to come together when Mashiach comes, there will be the Deus Hashem K'mayim Lachasim. This is all being nurtured now through these through the teachings of Chassidus, through the realms of understanding, these deeper states of consciousness, that this becomes now natural for us. It is a natural flow. We'll be so in sync with our mission, so in tune with what we need to do. It's just going to come out just naturally. And that's why when Mashiach comes, there won't be any commandment. A command means it's something that's not natural, something you have to be forced to do, something that's superimposed on some level. When Mashiach comes, there's not going to be anything superimposed. It's going to be natural. The pure Bechir Chavshis is going to be explained and explode through the flow of my inner self. And that's all because of all of this deep knowledge that really resides within us. The levels of Ak and Ur and Sof is real elements that relates within ourselves, because our soul went through all of these processes of Seder Ishtalshalos. So it's part of our deeper super consciousness. When we make them conscious, even for the time that we think about it, it builds that deeper flow and connection that now we have the natural flow of outwardly, of just doing Torah mitzvahs, living the life of what Hashem wants us to be, and everything will be b'chol derech chodei. We'll just live our lives based on what Hashem wants us to do. There won't be any obstructions, there won't be any challenges, there won't be any questions about whether I should live my life a little differently perhaps. That's all through this deep imbued knowledge that becomes conscious for the time, and then eventually becomes subconscious, like the driving down on the street. All information are not necessary maybe right now in this moment, but you know where to go because of it. You've programmed yourself because you became in tune with this information.